The thing hit the dead ground 40 feet from my boots, before I even understood the storm had broken open above me. 10 minutes. That's all a foot patrol on the span gets between tower check-ins out the east hatch, along the wire, back through the west hatch, radio and clean. I'd done it 900 times. I was not expecting the sky to tear a seam down the middle of it and drop something through. It came down wrong, wings half folded, and skidded through the gravel in a spray of mud and torn brush. And then it was just lying there, breathing hard. One wing bent at an angle wings aren't supposed to bend. My hand found my sidearm on pure reflex. Storm season meant Directive 12. Anything that comes down in the dead ground after a front like that gets treated as hostile until proven otherwise, and proven otherwise has a clock on it. I'd had the briefing 11 times. I knew the words by heart. I didn't draw. It lifted its head when I got close. Scales like wet pearl, catching what little light came through the cloud, not gold, not silver, something between, shifting when it moved. A juvenile, not a hatchling, long-limbed, half-grown into a body it didn't fit yet. One eye tracked me, slit-pupiled, terrified. The other was swollen shut. It hissed, weak, more reflex than threat, and tried to drag itself backward on a wing that wouldn't hold weight, and the sound it made when the wing gave out from under it wasn't a roar. It was smaller than that. It was the kind of sound that makes you stop being a sentry and start being a person. Easy, I said, which is a stupid thing to say to something that doesn't speak common, but my voice came out low and it stopped thrashing, and that was enough to start. I had maybe 4 minutes left before my check-in window closed, and the tower started asking questions. I keyed my radio and told them I'd found storm debris in the dead ground, a downed glider panel. I said, nothing requiring escort. I'd log it on my walk back. It wasn't a lie I'd thought through. It came out of me whole, the way the right lie does when you've already decided something underneath the words. The dragon let me get close enough to see the wing properly. Not broken at the bone, the membrane was torn along the leading edge, deep enough to bleed, and the joint was wrenched. Something had thrown it hard and sideways out of formation. I didn't know yet what formation. I just knew nothing fell like this without being part of something bigger first. I packed the tier with the gauze from my field kit and bound the wing flat against its body with my own jacket sleeves, talking the whole time in the flat, boring voice you'd use on a spooked animal, because that's what it was, whatever else it might turn out to be. It let me. That was the part that stayed with me after. Not that it was hurt, but that it chose, hurt and blind in one eye and surrounded by a species it had every reason to fear, to let my hand stay on it instead of using the claws it still had. 6 minutes gone. The tower called back. Sergeant Coe's voice, not unkind, just procedural. Storm debris doesn't bleed onto a glove, and my voice had a hitch in it she didn't like the sound of. She was sending a response pair to confirm. I told her not to bother. She told me that wasn't how Directive 12 worked. I asked her flat out, what happened to a sentry who falsified a contact report during an active storm protocol? She didn't answer right away, which was its own answer. 11 years on the wall, a clean file, a transfer to gate command I'd been angling for since spring. I did the math on all of it in about 2 seconds and set it down somewhere I could pick it back up later, because the dragon's good eye was on me the whole time, waiting to see what I'd do next, and that felt like it outweighed the file. I dragged it, half carried, half walked it, its claws hooked into my belt for balance, into the lee of the old grain bunker at the dead ground's edge, out of the sightline from the towers, and that was where I made my decision, if you want to call it that. It didn't feel like deciding. It felt like the only thing left once I'd already started. It made a sound low in its chest while I worked, not quite a purr, something older than that, and twice it turned its head and pressed its snout, careful, deliberate, against the back of my hand. The way you check something was real. I named it nothing. I didn't have the right to, but I told it out loud, that I wasn't going to let them shoot a kid for falling out of the sky, and it watched my mouth move like it was trying to learn the shape of the words, and somewhere above the cloud ceiling, faint enough I told myself I'd imagined it, something answered, a long, rising call, 3 notes, repeating, getting closer. The response pair found us at the 9-minute mark. Co herself, and a corporal I didn't know, sidearms drawn but not raised, which told me she still half believed my lie even with the evidence in front of her. "Step back, Marrow," she said. I didn't. "It's a juvenile," I said. "It's hurt. It hasn't threatened anyone. The directives for hostiles, Sergeant, that's the word in the order. Show me where it says scared." "The word in the order is unidentified," Co said. "That's the whole problem." She wasn't wrong, and I wasn't going to win this with paperwork. So I put myself between her sidearm and the wing I'd just finished binding, because that was the only argument I had left that meant anything, and I watched her decide whether a sentry standing her ground was worth escalating over. The cloud ceiling answered the question for both of us. It came apart like something tearing, not violent, just total, a long vertical seam of clear sky opening through the storm's belly, and through it came 4 shapes in close formation, wings cupped against the wind sheer, descending fast and then, all at once, not fast at all, the way something enormous can choose to be gentle. The lead one was the size of the bunker, scales the deep red-black of old iron left out in weather, eyes the slow gold of banked coals. She didn't roar. She didn't need to. Co's corporal took 3 steps backward without seeming to decide to. She didn't land on us. She landed beside us in the open dead ground, wings folding with a sound like a sail coming down, and she lowered her head, not bowed, not submissive, just brought level, eye to eye with a woman half her height holding a half-bandaged stranger's son against her own jacket. The juvenile made the 3-note call again, weaker now, and the answer that came back from that enormous chest was so quiet I felt it more than heard it. Her name, the corporal told me later, shaking, reading off a translator slate someone had finally thought to bring. Her name was Ustra, wing mother of the Thren Skyhold, and the boy under my jacket was Corin, 3rd of her line, thrown clear of the passing flight when the front hit harder than any front had hit in 40 years. They'd been searching the storm's wake since the formation broke. 6 other flyers were down somewhere on the coastline behind her, hunting the same gap in the sky. Ustra didn't ask me to kneel. Nobody knelt. She studied the binding on Corin's wing, my jacket sleeves, my gauze, my work, for a long moment, the way you'd study a stranger's handwriting and recognize, somehow, that it was careful. Then she lowered her head the rest of the way and touched her snout, light as breath, to the back of my hand, the same place Corin had pressed his. Co didn't holster her weapon so much as forget she was holding it. There was no proclamation, no title offered, none taken. Ustra gathered her son against her flank, careful of the bound wing, and the 3 escort flyers closed around them both, and the seam in the storm sealed itself behind them the way it had opened, total and unhurried, like the sky had only ever been borrowing the light. Co wrote the incident up as a storm-related anomaly, contact non-hostile, resolved without force. She didn't ask me to change a word of it. She also didn't ask for my jacket back, which I noticed, because I never got it back, and some part of me hopes that means it's still out there somewhere, holding a wing together on a boy who's learning to fly straight again. I still walk the span, 10 minutes out, 10 minutes back, checking clean, but I count differently now. I used to count the minutes until I was off the wall. Now I count the ones it takes to decide whether you're going to be the kind of person who looks at something falling and reaches for it anyway.